Today I'm going to be painting this mountain path scene and using this reference. I'm going to get roughly like it and explain how I go along the way. I've already started. In the background you can see I'm using the color fill tool in Procreate, which makes things a lot quicker to blast in big shapes. So my process is always big shapes first and try to get the colors reasonably correct. I'm looking for the darkest color in the big shape and then I'll lighten it as I go. Most of the time, I don't know why exactly, but I oversaturate everything when I start. I kind of like bright colors, so I think it's okay. Sometimes I think every artist, every time you paint, there's something that you kind of do a bit weird that nobody else does. You kind of have a blind spot for. And for me, I always oversaturate everything. So you probably have something like that too. So don't worry about what that is. Just as long as you can deal with it, this it's fine. As long as you see it at some point in your process, it's all good. Let me know down in the comments if you have one of these weird blind spots. It's probably not oversaturating colors. It's probably something else, but it'd be cool to know that I'm not the only one who does weird shit. So I'm blocking in the colors still and roughing out where I want things to go. Of course, I'm copying the reference on the left. Copy is probably a strong word. I'm not really copying it exactly. I'm just using it as a guide to what I want it to look like. Now, obviously, it's going to look fairly similar, but I'm not too worried about where the trees go exactly and where the snow goes and where the mountain ranges go. I think if you're too worried about where everything goes, it can be kind of boring to paint and the flow kind of comes out of it. You want fun doing this, and so I try. I mean, obviously you can't see my eyes, but I don't look at the reference that often. I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing, and it's nice to have it like right next to me, but I don't really pay a huge amount of attention to it, if that makes sense. Once I kind of get the gist of where things are going, I kind of just see what happens. I could easily just turn it off most of the time. I want to keep it there so you can kind of see what I'm doing, but most of the time I turn it off. So once I have these big shapes, I'm using one brush in Procreate on my iPad. For this entire painting, sorry, I'm using two brushes. It's called a technical pen, and a really tiny bit I use a soft brush. Any soft brush and any technical pen. The only thing about the technical pen is it's small and it has hard edges. That's the only thing about it that actually matters. You can use hard brush, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You only have hard brushes and soft brushes generally. I mean, unless you start to go textured and whatever, which I don't really use those. Because I prefer just to paint all the strokes myself. You may want to use these pattern brushes, and there's nothing wrong with those. So go for it. Do whatever works for you. But I just like making all the shapes myself. And you can see I'm quite fast with that anyway. I like to paint messy and quick. I'm not trying to copy this painting, this photo, sorry. I'm trying to, just represent what it is. And I'm trying to learn as I go along. I'm trying to see, well, how do I render this, and all these situations? How do I make it, look real without having to paint every single thing? Because I'm not interested in that. I mean, if you are, great, but this painting took me about an hour or something. Now, if I wanted this really realistic, you're talking, maybe like 5-10 hours. And I'd rather just get on with something else. And, my attention span does not go that far, unfortunately. I mean, if you got lots of patience, then great, you could probably paint ultra realistic stuff. But for me, my brain doesn't basically allow that. So I have to just represent rather than paint the exact thing. So you'll see me paint with a brush, and I will reiterate that is the technical pen. That's the only brush I use. And again, it doesn't really matter. It's just a small hard brush. Now, it at max size, it's still very small, so that's quite useful for me. Because I use it generally to make texture, and if the brush is too big, you don't get texture. So you need it small. Now, one thing to point out is very important, or the direction of the brush. So you'll see me angling my pen to make sure that the strokes are going in the right direction. So what that means is, like, vertical trees have horizontal, the pine trees have horizontal leaves and whatever, branches and whatever. So I make sure my pencil is going horizontal. Now, when I'm drawing the grass banks, they're tilted to the right or the left or down or up or whatever. So just make sure that whatever you're representing, that your texture is in the right direction. So what I mean by that is you can forget and just paint in the direction you like. Like, most of the time we have a direction we like is like horizontal or vertical or whatever. And I used to do this too, so I know, is like I always used to paint kind of diagonally, so because that's just more comfortable for me. Now, you have to make sure you're not comfortable sometimes painting these directions. So it's the direction of these textures make a big difference. So watch out for that. So I'm just adding details of these little stone wall things. And in hindsight, I'm talking over this as I painted. I painted this earlier, so I kind of get to critique it a little bit. And looking, I mean, not like I'm trying to nail the reference exactly, but I'm kind of a bit annoyed that I didn't see this kind of like sepia over the entire thing. I could have probably put that on the end as some kind of layer, as an effect rather than the whole thing. But my path is a bit too white. Everything's a little bit too white. Now, I could probably put this would only probably take a few minutes, to be honest, just to put a big kind of yellow filter type thing on top of it. I mean, I'm sure it basically looks like an Instagram filter or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to make the reference. And I always say that if I didn't show you the reference in the first place, you wouldn't know if it matched the reference or not. So who cares? It doesn't actually make any difference. So one nice little trick with these clouds is make them kind of look comic-y. And I use, again, the color fill select tool to blast them out. But one thing I do a little bit different here, if you've seen any of my other videos, I'm using the smudge tool, which I don't use very often, but it's really good for making soft things. So clouds are definitely one of those that you want to do. I got a bit lazy here, to be honest, because clouds have sharp bits too, and I really couldn't be bothered to put them in. I probably should have. But depending on how much effort you want to give to your paintings, I'm sure you all know if you're in the mood to, go really detailed and, take your time or whatever. But I wasn't feeling this one so much, so I kind of wanted it over with. I don't know if you get, that kind of vibe sometimes when you paint and it's like, yes, it's okay, but, I kind of want to get on to the next one. I think I got that with this one for some reason. I'm not sure why, but one thing to point out with snow, is it. I'm not saying this is technically correct for every situation, but snow on the left is generally a muted blue, and the snow on the right is a pretty much white-ish. Not quite white. It's usually whatever sunlight is coming, so it might be a bit yellow or whatever. So, but you can't go wrong. You can't go too wrong with having a muted blue on the dark side and the white on the other. So it's obviously still snow, but because light isn't hitting it, it generally goes blue because it's reflecting the sky. But if your sky is not blue, don't make your snow blue, because that will not work. If for some reason you're painting a red sky, for example, the snow will be red. Muted red, but still red. Because snow is incredibly reflective. Think of snow like a little bit like a mirror. Snow can be a nightmare to paint, to be honest. But once you understand what it's doing, it's not white. It is reflecting whatever is there because, well, I mean, it is white, but it's reflecting whatever's around it. So if a bright yellow light hits snow, it will be yellow because it's highly reflective. And then in the shadow side, it will be a cold yellow. Not even sure what that is. You know, when I don't understand which color to use, digitally is very easy. Is if you take the yellow, stick it on the shadow side, the exact same yellow, and then take a blue or a purple, which is cold, put the opacity down to like 50 or whatever, and then put it on top, and then you'll get the right color. So this is a nice trick if you don't know the color of what to make shadow and highlights. But the point of the color is not so much should it be green, should it be blue, should it be red, whatever. It's more important of how light or dark it is, how saturated it is, and what temperature it is. So temperature just means hot or cold, obviously. But depending on the situation, you want to have a big difference between the two. So if you got something in the sun, you want it to be warm, and if you have something in shadow, you want it to be cold. And you can reverse those two, so don't take it as relative all the time. But that's the general idea. So I'm coming to the end. I've waffled on a bit. Hopefully I've given some good tips. If I have, give me a sub and a like, and I'll catch you in the next one.